What if the deepest wound you carry isn't a curse, but a hidden invitation to become who you were always meant to be? That might sound impossible, even offensive, but stay with me, because the truth might be more powerful than the pain. In the field of psychology, Carl Jung once made a piercing observation. The strongest souls are forged in the fire of betrayal, not born into strength, not given it by chance. Forged. To be forged means to be burned, broken, hammered, and reshaped. Imagine metal plunged into flame until it glows, then pounded relentlessly, cooled, and reforged again. Strength doesn't appear fully formed. It is created in the crucible of suffering, and betrayal is perhaps the hottest fire of all. Picture this. You're moving through life, trusting, loving, believing in the goodness of someone, a partner, a friend, a parent. And then, without warning, the ground disappears beneath you. They lied. They left. They hurt you. It feels like your heart has been torn open and your entire identity falls into question. Betrayal doesn't ask permission. It kicks down the door of your heart. It doesn't whisper. It roars. And in the aftermath, the first instinct is to focus on them. Why did they do this? How could they? What did I do to deserve this? But as Jung observed, hidden beneath that devastation is a far more important question. Who am I when everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and safety is gone? This is the beginning of the individuation process. Not just healing from heartbreak, but a radical, painful, beautiful transformation of the self. This is not about returning to who you were before, but uncovering who you were always meant to become. The collapse of illusion. Betrayal isn't just about losing someone else. It's about losing a version of yourself that was built around a certain belief, that love protects, that loyalty is returned, that being good guarantees safety. These aren't just hopes, they're illusions. And when betrayal happens, those illusions crumble. The pain is not just grief, it's disorientation. You're not mourning only what you lost in another person. You're mourning the stories you told yourself, that you were chosen, that you were safe, that you were enough. This collapse can feel like death. And in some ways, it is. It is the death of false security, the death of conditional self-worth, the death of pretending. But with that death comes the chance for new life, a more truthful one. What pain reveals. Here's what no one tells you. Betrayal is not meaningless. It is not random. It's often your psyche's way of screaming, "We need to talk." Jung called this confrontation with pain the call to individuation, the process of becoming whole by facing the shadow, the unacknowledged parts of yourself. It sounds mystical, but it's very real. The pain draws to the surface the silent beliefs that have shaped your life. I'm not worthy unless I please others. If I'm not needed, I'm not loved. Love means safety, and I must earn it. These beliefs have been running quietly beneath your choices for years, like invisible puppet strings. Betrayal doesn't gently untie them, it cuts them, all at once. And what you're left with is terrifying. You, just you, without performance, without protection, without illusion. Just your raw, real, unfiltered self, staring back in the mirror, asking, now what? The invitation in the wreckage. As devastating as betrayal is, there is also something strangely sacred in it. Not because pain is beautiful, but because pain strips away the unnecessary. When someone you loved breaks your heart, you get to see exactly where your identity was entangled with their approval, where your worth was outsourced to their affection, where your boundaries were missing because you were afraid of being left. This moment becomes a mirror, not of their flaws, but of your patterns. You begin to notice how much of your life was spent trying to be chosen, how much of your energy was devoted to being what others needed, how often you confused love with attachment, safety with silence. And slowly, beneath the rubble, you start to see something rise. Self-respect. Not the performative kind, but the real kind. The kind that doesn't need to be proven, only remembered. The kind that says, even if they left, I'm still here. Even if they lied, I am still true. Even if they rejected me, I do not reject myself. This is the fire. It burns, but it also purifies. From survival to meaning. Most people survive betrayal, but not everyone finds meaning in it. Finding meaning doesn't mean justifying what happened. It means using what happened to illuminate who you truly are. The real transformation begins when you stop trying to get back to the you from before and begin discovering the you that betrayal is revealing. This new self isn't naive. It no longer believes in fairy tales where love guarantees forever. but it is also not bitter. It has learned to distinguish between pain and identity, between being hurt and being broken, between love that expands and love that controls. This is the paradox. You were shattered, but now you're more whole. You are the firekeeper. The pain of betrayal is a forge, and you, whether you believe it yet or not, are the firekeeper. You are the one who gets to choose what happens next. You can let the fire consume you, or you can use it to shape something unbreakable. This isn't a linear journey. There will be days when the old stories call you back, when the ache feels too heavy, when you forget who you are. That's okay. But each time you choose truth over illusion, boundaries over begging, self-respect over self-abandonment, you strengthen the soul that betrayal set free. You are not broken, you are becoming. And this painful, sacred, disorienting process, this is just the beginning. In the smoldering silence that betrayal leaves behind, there is something else waiting. Not closure, not clarity, but a mirror. And in this mirror, you don't see the person who hurt you. You see yourself, not the self you show others, not the curated self, but the real one. The one that's been buried under years of people-pleasing, performance, and survival. Carl Jung spoke often of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves that we deny, suppress, or avoid. After betrayal, these shadows come crawling into the light. It's easy to focus on the one who betrayed you, but the more radical, transformative act is to turn inward and ask, what did this rupture reveal about me? This part of your healing is not about blame. It's about honesty. And honesty here is painful, but it is also liberating. Shadow work. What the pain unveils. Shadow work is the uncomfortable, necessary process of confronting the parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. Parts we were told made us unlovable, weak, or wrong. Betrayal acts like a flashlight, shining directly on these wounds. Maybe you realize that you tied your worth to being needed, that you stayed silent to keep the peace, that you mistook control for love, validation for connection, that you were more comfortable being chosen than choosing yourself. Betrayal reveals how much of your identity has been built on pleasing others. It exposes the compromises you made to be accepted, the masks you wore to feel safe, the abandonment of your truth just to belong. And now, all those parts of you, the scared child, the performer, the peacemaker, are staring back at you, not to shame you, but to finally be seen. The courage to witness your patterns. This is where many people turn back. The pain of looking inward is often worse than the pain of betrayal itself, because it requires giving up the fantasy that it was all someone else's fault. It asks you to notice how you participated, not in the betrayal, but in the forgetting of your own power. It's here that you start asking new questions. Why do I believe I'm only worthy when I'm needed? Why do I stay when I feel unseen? Why do I fear walking away from what doesn't serve me? Why do I confuse sacrifice with love? These aren't accusations, they're invitations. Because when you start asking better questions, you begin to uncover better answers. And those answers begin to form a new foundation, one rooted not in performance, but in authenticity. Reclaiming the lost self. Think of betrayal as an earthquake that shakes your foundation. Everything that wasn't built on truth begins to fall. This is terrifying, but it is also necessary. In the rubble, you start to discover pieces of yourself you abandoned long ago. The version of you that spoke up without apology. The version that trusted their gut over pleasing others. The one who played, who dreamed, who didn't need to earn love. These parts aren't gone, just buried. And as you reclaim them, you begin to rebuild a version of yourself that's not dependent on anyone else's approval. This is where you stop asking, how could they? And start asking, how can I return to myself? The myth of closure. One of the cruelest myths about healing is the idea of closure. The fantasy that one day it will all make sense, that the pain will vanish, that you'll get an explanation that makes it okay. But what if closure isn't something someone gives you? What if it's something you give yourself? Not by understanding what they did, but by understanding what you need. Closure isn't a door someone else shuts. It's the moment you decide to stop waiting for an apology that may never come. It's the moment you choose peace over answers. It's when you realize that you can forgive without excusing and move forward without forgetting. Real closure doesn't come from them. It comes from the day you stop making them the center of your story. The slow becoming. This isn't a transformation you can rush. There is no 10-step guide, no clear timeline. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You will revisit the same wounds, the same stories again and again. But each time, you'll come back with more awareness, more compassion, more power. There will be days when you miss them, days when the old beliefs whisper again, days when you wonder if any of this work is worth it. And that's okay, because healing doesn't mean never feeling pain. It means you know what to do with the pain when it comes. You cry without shame, you rest without guilt, you speak the truth, even if your voice trembles. You stop hiding your humanity, and slowly, you begin to trust yourself again. The power of choosing yourself. In the aftermath of betrayal, choosing yourself might feel selfish, especially if you've been conditioned to equate love with self-abandonment. But choosing yourself is not rejection of others. It's a reclamation of self. It's the moment you say, I am not defined by someone else's inability to love me. I will not shrink to fit inside a relationship that cannot hold all of me. I'm allowed to be whole without being needed. I am worthy, not when I am perfect, but when I am real. These aren't affirmations to chant in the mirror. They're truths to live by. Truths that guide your choices, your relationships, your boundaries. You stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop performing. And in that space, something sacred happens. You meet yourself. Meeting the unbreakable self. What is the unbreakable self? It's not the part of you that never cries or never doubts. It's the part that remains whole even when life feels in pieces. It's the part that knows your worth isn't up for debate. That your value isn't dependent on being chosen, praised, or needed. The unbreakable self is born not in spite of your wounds, but because of them. It's the self that emerges when every illusion has been burned away, when every role has been stripped, when all that's left is you, honest, tender, powerful, and true. This self is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It walks into a room and takes up space without asking permission. It loves deeply, but doesn't beg. It trusts wisely, but doesn't close off. It knows solitude is not punishment, and connection is not a reward. This is the gift betrayal offers. Not just healing, but wholeness. Not just strength, but sovereignty. The first two stages of transformation, the rupture of betrayal and the reclamation of self, prepare the ground for the deepest, most essential work of all, integration. If pain was the fire and awareness the mirror, now we enter the forge itself. Here, the soul is not only seen, but shaped. This is the alchemical stage, the point at which everything you've endured begins to make sense. Not because it was justified, but because it forged something unshakable in you. Carl Jung called this process individuation. The soul's movement toward wholeness. Not perfection, wholeness. A state in which every part of you, even the ones you once rejected, is welcomed home. This is the chapter of becoming. Not who others want you to be, not who you pretended to be to survive, but who you were always meant to be. 1. Meeting the inner exile, the parts we abandoned. As you dive into integration, you will inevitably come face to face with the parts of yourself you exiled long ago. The child who was too sensitive, the teen who rebelled and was punished, the young adult who dared to dream but was told they were unrealistic, the version of you who wanted to be loved without earning it. These parts didn't disappear. They're waiting, in the body, in the dreams, in the recurring ache you can't explain. And now, in the aftermath of betrayal, you have the chance to go back for them, not to fix them, but to welcome them. You begin by noticing what triggers you, noticing what makes you overreact, what makes you go silent, what makes you afraid of being seen. These reactions are not flaws, they are trail markers. They point you to the places where your healing is still unfolding. And when you meet these wounded parts, don't try to rationalize them away. Don't try to talk them out of their pain. Just sit with them. Listen. Offer the compassion they never got. This is the heart of integration, not control, but connection. 2. Soul retrieval, reclaiming the power. We gave away. Betrayal doesn't just take love, it takes power. And often, we gave that power away long before the betrayal even occurred. We gave it away every time we silenced ourselves to keep someone comfortable. Every time we ignored red flags because we feared being alone. Every time we accepted crumbs and called it love. Soul retrieval is the process of reclaiming that power, of saying, I choose me, even if you don't. It's not an ego-driven rebellion. It's a sacred act of alignment. It's the moment you stop trying to belong and start choosing where you do. It's also the moment you realize that wholeness was never out there. It was never in their love, their validation, their attention. It was always inside you, hidden beneath layers of fear, shame, and self-abandonment. You don't have to become someone else to be loved. You just have to remember who you are beneath the armor. 3. Death and rebirth. The ego must die. The hardest part of integration is this: something in you must die. Not literally, but symbolically. The part of you that believed love must be earned. The part that built a personality around being needed. The part that clung to relationships just to feel safe. These identities kept you alive. But now they're keeping you from being fully alive. Let them die. Mourn them. Honor them. Thank them. And then bury them. In their place, something new will emerge. Not all at once, but in pieces. A voice that speaks truth even when it shakes. A heart that can hold grief without closing. A spine that stands tall without being rigid. A presence that says, I am enough, without needing external agreement. This is the rebirth Jung spoke of. The emergence of the self, with a capital S. Not the personality, not the roles, not the masks, but the soul. The true center of your being. 4. Loving without losing yourself. One of the greatest fears that lingers after betrayal is, what if I open my heart again and it gets broken? The truth, it might. But now, you love differently. Before, you loved from fear, from a place of proving, pleasing, and performing. Now, you love from wholeness. This means you can say no without guilt. You can set boundaries without apology. You can express needs without shame. You can walk away from what doesn't honor you. You're not perfect, but you're real. And in being real, you give yourself the chance to be seen and loved as you are, not as who you think you should be. This is love beyond illusion. Love that includes you. Love that liberates instead of enslaves. 5. Becoming a safe space. For yourself and others. As you heal, something profound happens. You become a sanctuary. Not just for yourself, but for others. Because you've sat in your own darkness, you can sit in someone else's without trying to fix them. Because you've walked through your fire, you can hold someone else's pain without fear. This is the energy of the wounded healer. Not someone who pretends to be whole, but someone who has integrated their wounds into wisdom. You become the friend who listens without judging, the partner who loves without controlling, the leader who guides without ego. You become the mirror in which others see their own wholeness, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. 6. Reshaping the story. From victim to hero. You may have started this journey feeling like the victim, and rightfully so. Betrayal is a violation. But in this stage, you begin to rewrite the narrative, not to erase the pain, but to reclaim your agency. The story is no longer, they hurt me and I will never recover. It becomes, that pain revealed what I'd forgotten about myself. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what did this awaken in me? This is not spiritual bypassing, it's spiritual sovereignty. It's the radical act of saying, I will not let this break me, I will let it build me. And when you do that, you are no longer the victim of your story. You are the author. 7. The return, sharing your light. Every hero's journey ends with a return. After the descent into the underworld, after the trials and revelations, there comes a moment when the hero returns to the world, changed. You are no longer who you were. You walk with a different posture, speak with a deeper voice, see with clearer eyes. But this isn't just for you. The final step of transformation is contribution, sharing what you've learned. You don't need to become a coach or therapist, though you might. Sometimes, simply existing as your whole self is enough. Sometimes, just loving someone in a healthier way is enough. Sometimes, speaking your truth at the dinner table is enough. You become a lighthouse, not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped hiding your light. You've moved from survival to creation, from reaction to intention, from pain to purpose, and the world feels it. 8. Integration is ongoing, not an endpoint. Here's the secret. You never finish becoming. Integration is not a destination. It's a devotion. There will be more betrayals, not always as devastating, but still painful. There will be more moments of forgetting, more shadow to meet, more truth to uncover. But now, you're not afraid of that process, because you know that every descent has treasure, every ending holds a beginning, every fracture contains light. You've been forged in fire, tempered by grief, strengthened by truth. You are not who you were. You are who you chose to become. And that, more than anything, is what makes you unbreakable. Integration is not a chapter that closes. It's a rhythm we learn to dance with. And the final phase of becoming unbreakable isn't marked by a single moment of triumph, but by the slow, courageous act of living every day with the wisdom we've earned. In this final section, we move from deep inner work to embodied action, from internal healing to external alignment. It's where transformation meets life. This final part, delivered in 2 halves, explores how to live as the unbreakable self in the real world, in your relationships, your work, your solitude, your creativity, and your calling. This is no longer about recovery, it's about recreation. 1. Building a life aligned with your soul. When we begin to live from our integrated self, a strange tension arises. On one hand, we're still in the same world, same city, same family, same workplace. But on the other hand, we're no longer the same. What used to feel acceptable, the small talk, the shallow connections, the hustle for worth, now feels hollow. We begin to crave alignment, not just in our inner life, but in our outer reality. Relationships that reflect who we are now. Work that feels meaningful, not just tolerable. Environments that nourish our spirit, not drain it. This is not about perfection, it's about congruence. You start by asking radical questions. Where am I pretending? Where do I feel most alive? What would my day look like if I trusted my soul to lead? These questions aren't answered overnight, but they start shaping your choices, and slowly, your life begins to mirror your becoming. 2. Practicing boundaries as sacred protection. One of the first signs that you've stepped into your unbreakable self is the ability to set boundaries without guilt, not out of defense, but out of reverence, for your time, your energy, your peace. Betrayal teaches you where you overgave, where you contorted yourself to be loved, where you tolerated misalignment because you were afraid of loneliness. But now, boundaries become sacred. Not walls, but doorways. You learn to say, no, that doesn't work for me. I need space. I'm not available for this dynamic anymore. At first, it feels terrifying. You may lose people. You may be misunderstood. But what you gain is priceless. Self-trust. And with it, a life that supports who you truly are. 3. Cultivating authentic relationships. When you no longer need to be needed, you can finally experience real intimacy. This means you don't pursue people who are emotionally unavailable. You don't chase validation. You don't hide your truth to keep the peace. Instead, you show up whole. And you call in others who are doing the same. This doesn't mean relationships become perfect, but they become spacious, honest, sacred. You learn to speak from your center, not your wounds. You hold space for others without losing yourself. You become a presence where truth feels safe, and that changes everything. 4. Letting go of the old life. Without shame. Often, the hardest part of transformation isn't the pain. It's the grief for the person you were, the people you loved, the life that almost fit. But part of becoming unbreakable is learning to let go without shame. Yes, you stayed too long. Yes, you dimmed your light. Yes, you betrayed yourself to be chosen. But that was before you knew better. Before you remembered who you are. Forgive yourself. Mourn the old life with tenderness. Then bless it. Not because it was good, but because it grew you. Letting go is not failure. It's evolution. 5. Living with vulnerability and strength. Unbreakable doesn't mean invulnerable. In fact, the most resilient people are also the most open-hearted. You can cry and be courageous. You can grieve and be grounded. You can feel fear and still act from your truth. This is the paradox of strength. It grows not in avoidance, but in presence. You stop numbing. You stop pretending. You let life touch you. You trust that your soul can hold it all. This makes you magnetic, not because you're trying, but because your presence carries truth. You're no longer performing, you're embodying. 6. Creating from the soul. True healing births creativity. When you stop betraying yourself, something opens. The muse returns. Ideas flow. Art, music, writing, movement, parenting, presence all become sacred acts of expression. You don't create to impress, you create to remember. Every brushstroke, every note, every word becomes a thread connecting you back to your essence. You express not what the world wants to hear, but what your soul longs to say. This is no longer about career, it's about devotion. 7. Trusting the unknown. After betrayal, the mind wants guarantees. How do I know this won't happen again? How can I protect myself from more pain? But the unbreakable self doesn't cling to control. It trusts the unknown, because you've seen what happens when the old world crumbles and how something more real rises in its place. You begin to walk with open hands. You make decisions from intuition, not fear. You release the illusion of certainty and live from presence instead. This doesn't mean recklessness. It means rooted surrender. You trust not because life is predictable. You trust because you are. 8. Becoming the lighthouse. Your healing is not just about you. Every boundary you hold gives others permission to do the same. Every truth you speak lights a path for someone still silent. Every time you choose love over fear, you ripple out change. You don't need to shout your journey. You don't need to fix anyone. Just be who you are. Your presence, steady, whole, real, becomes a lighthouse in a stormy world. And slowly, others find their way home. 9. Mastering your emotional landscape. True mastery isn't about eliminating pain or discomfort. It's about befriending the full spectrum of your emotions without being overwhelmed. The unbreakable self doesn't suppress anger, sadness, or fear. It welcomes them as teachers. You learn to pause before reacting, to breathe into discomfort rather than fleeing it. Over time, this creates a spacious inner sanctuary where emotions can arise, be felt fully, and pass naturally. You don't get stuck in loops of rumination or self-judgment. This mastery isn't perfection, it's resilience, a deep knowing that no feeling is permanent and all feelings have a purpose. 10. Embracing the shadow as a source of power. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The unbreakable self turns toward its shadows, instead of running from them. You explore your fears, insecurities, and past wounds with curiosity and compassion. Instead of hiding these parts, you integrate them. They become a source of strength and creativity, a wellspring of authenticity that enriches your relationships and your life. 11. Owning your story. Without shame or blame, integration means owning every chapter of your story, not as a victim, not as a martyr, but as the author of your life. You stop blaming yourself or others for your pain. Instead, you claim responsibility for how you respond to it. This shift frees you from the paralysis of resentment and regret, opening space for growth and freedom. Your story becomes a source of inspiration, both for yourself and for those who hear it. 12. Living with purpose and meaning. The unbreakable self lives deliberately. Your past betrayal has shaped your values and priorities. You start to seek out what truly matters: connection, creativity, kindness, growth, rather than chasing superficial goals. You build rituals and habits that nurture your soul. Whether that's meditation, journaling, service to others, or time in nature, these practices root you deeply in your wholeness. You become an active participant in your own healing and evolution. 13. Becoming a beacon for others. Your transformation isn't only personal, it becomes collective. By embodying your unbreakable self, you inspire others to do the same. People see your courage, your honesty, and your love. They feel safe to face their own pain and break free from their own cycles. You become a living testament to the power of resilience and authenticity. This ripple effect creates communities of healing and hope, changing the world one heart at a time. 14. The eternal dance of becoming integration is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. You'll face new challenges and betrayals. You'll experience moments of doubt and fear. But now, you carry the tools to navigate these storms: the wisdom, the boundaries, the courage, the self-love. You dance with life's paradoxes: strength and vulnerability, certainty and mystery, loss and love. This dance is your mastery, your freedom, your becoming. Final reflection: the fire that once threatened to consume you has forged you into something stronger than you ever imagined. You are unbreakable. Not because you never get hurt, but because you always come back whole. This is your story, your power, your gift to the world. If you're ready to fully embody your unbreakable self, remember this: you are already enough. You are already whole. You are already loved.